Okay, Skirk official banner just arrived. Everyone, this time around the banner looks to be pretty decent. But again, as usual, we're going to be looking through the banner and I'll provide you my personal opinion on some of the things that you guys need to take note on before you actually decide to go and pull on the banner. Skirk is going to be finally coming and I know that many of you are excited for her. So if you're planning to swipe for pulling, then don't forget to check out Loot Bar. If you know me, I've been recommending you guys Loot Bar before since you can always save almost a 25% on all of your top-ups. With over 100,000 orders and so many good reviews at this point. And by the way, this also applies to PS5 and Xbox user who can place orders through Loot Bar. You can be sure that Loot Bar is trustworthy. Here you can see my order receipts of all of my top-ups that I have done. And for those who are going for the highest package when topping up, there's also a limited discount options available once every version. So guys, be sure to check out Loot Bar through the link in my description as it can be a great way for you to save your money, especially if you are topping up a large amount. First off, we have Skirk. Now, technically, I've already discussed quite a lot about Skirk on my channel. But currently, here's what I think about Skirk, right? She's definitely going to be a very good cryo DPS character. Now, wow, of course, she is a pretty hyped character for many of you. So, I'm pretty sure many of you have already decided to pull for Skirk. But if you guys are still on the fence, then the part where Skirk is pretty much a full-on cryo DPS character is something that you need to take note of. Now, it's a good thing that we have another very good cryo DPS character as we haven't got one for a pretty long time. Obviously, the other cryo DPS character at this point will not be able to hold up against Skirk because yes, Skirk power level is most likely going to be on the same level as, you know, like Novelet. Won't be on the same level as Mavuika because obviously Mavuika is just absolutely amazing in terms of raw DPS power. But overall, she is shaping up to be a very good character at what she does, and that's a good thing. The other good thing is that she's a very easy character to play. I feel the combo animation of setting up everything about Skirk is rather easy if you are using her on the freeze team, which is where she is technically pretty much stuck in a freeze team while she can reach out to some other supportive character on her team. You know, for example, like Chelonin may be able to be on Skirk's team, but she will always going to be prefer you putting her in a freeze team, which is where, yes, sometimes if you do want to have her in the best team possible, it is going to be quite expensive for Skirk. So obviously there's one side of Skirk being a very good character that can potentially help your team out, but there's the other side of if you want to play Skirk properly, there is going to be a bit of an investment into Skirk team specifically, and some other parts of her weapons as well if you really want it. But do expect that Skirk investment is going to be rather high compared to some of the other DPS character that is similar to her power level, which is Novelet and Mavuika, who's a lot more free to play friendly. And then we have Shenhe being right next to Skirk. Now this is to be expected because yes, Shenhe is a cryo buffer for the game. And of course, she has recently been here but is on the Chronicle banner. If we look into her being on the official rerun banner, it's been a very long time. But while Skirk is a DPS character, Shenhe being here is a good thing. Now, in the past, Shenhe has always been considered to be the best cryo buffer. However, there is currently a bit of a competition for Shenhe, especially if we're looking into Skirk team building, because Skirk specifically works in a free team. And well, whenever we talk about free team, Escoffier is always going to be in question. So these two characters being in basically the same category of having the ability to buff your team, but Escoffier also has the ability to do a bit of sub DPS damage and healing, which put Escoffier in the position so that if Escoffier is being used in the right team, which is, you know, more or less a free team, then Escoffier is technically going to be better than Shenhe. Now that's not to say that Shenhe is not bad, right? Technically, you can use these two characters on the same team, and oh my god, that's going to be absolutely crazy. But I know out there, many of you don't have access to enough primo gems to, you know, if you don't have Shenhe, you already pulled for Skirk, then it's going to to be a pretty tough time for you to actually try to get Shenhe again. But while that is in the case if you already have Skirk VA. Now I know that there are people who haven't got Skirk VA, so technically if you want to have a better Skirk team, it's either for you guys to have a Skirk Shenhe being the core part of team building for Skirk, which is why, as I mentioned in the above section, where Skirk is a character that is going to require you to have quite a bit of an investment for her to be put in a very decent team comp and use Skirk properly. So yes, Shenhe value is still absolutely high because she is a character that buff any cryo character. It doesn't have to be in a free team whatsoever. Her value is still going to be here and has a very high future proofing kind of sense. But do note that Shenhe would love for you to actually have her weapon, because even though Favonius Lance is good, it does limit her attack buffing to quite a bit of a level. And other than that, she is technically not complete at the C0 level. I always say this because Shenhe C1 is just so good of a quality of life improvement for Shenhe that always trying to get for a C1 Shenhe is definitely going to be the way that everyone tried to do. So that's something you need to take note of whenever you are trying to look into a Shenhe investment. Now, even though Skirk investment is rather high, that's not to say that she doesn't have access to a 4-star free-to-play team, because wow, if we look onto the 4-star character on the banner, it is shaping up to be a pretty good character cast. Now, we already know that Dahlia is going to be on Skirk's banner. He is a new character. He has very interesting ability in terms of providing you normal attack speed increase, but also a Hydro Shield, which is, well, does give you that defensive ability, but overall he is a Hydro character that satisfies the building of Skirk's free team. Obviously, I won't be discussing Skirk's team in depth in this video because while I technically have already had another specific Skirk team discussion vid, but obviously I'm going to be testing out a lot of different Skirk team whenever she comes out, and I'll have another video this Wednesday. Candice being back is an interesting thing. Now, we already had an idea that Candice may be coming back as she hasn't been back for a bit of time. Candice, I think, is a fine character. She does buff normal attack really well, but the fact that she does lack a bit of Hydro application before C6 is a little bit hard to be using on the Skirk team whenever you want to have a bit of a freezing enemies in place. However, if freezing your enemies in place isn't too much of a problem for you, then yes, Candice is going to be a pretty good character on Skirk team with the sheer amount of normal attack that she gives to Skirk. But moreover, while I'm pretty sure you guys already have a couple of constellation for Candice unless you're very unlucky. So yes, if you do have up to a C6 Candice, she is going to be having access to rather good Hydro application for a bit of more freezing on your part. So having Candice here is actually a really good thing, especially for those of you who are pulling on Skirk's banner. And then finally, Diona, a lovely cute cat girl, is back. Diona value is still there because first of all, again, she gives you a shield. Moreover, she does have access to healing for your team. Not to mention her C6 ability is actually good. However, it doesn't really work out in free team, but 200 EM given to you on the 4-star character is actually very nice. So the usage of Diona is definitely going to be there. So which is why I'm saying that the 4-star character cast on this banner this time around is really good, because you can technically build a full Skirk free team free to play through this banner alone. And that, I think, is a good thing that Hoyover is doing, especially for promoting Skirk as a character. I don't think Skirk is that bad of a character that Hoyover needs to do this, but as long as this is here, I think that's a pretty fine thing to do. Up next, we have the weapon banner. Now, yes, Skirk weapon is definitely going to be a very good weapon for Skirk individually, because of the sheer fact that not only does it give you a bit of a decent crit rate amount, though Skirk doesn't actually lack crit rate, but other than that, you do have attack increase and as well as a 40% crit damage increase, which is really huge. And specifically, yes, it is technically made for Skirk. You can kind of try to use this on other character, but they obviously won't be able to make the full use of this because they do need to have their character energy at a 0 before they get the second part of the passive, which is where the crit damage is. So even though this weapon is good, it is mostly for Skirk at the current point. Though we've already discussed that Skirk does have some of the other 5-star options that you can use. However, when it comes to the 4-star options, it is not too good for her, and the difference between the 4-star and her signature can be a bit high. So of course, again, you would love to have this weapon onto Skirk. However, if you do have some other 5-star options already, you can also consider that as well and save your pools. But if you are pulling on this banner, you may have potential to get the Calamity Collar. This is a very good poem, especially if you have for Shenhe, right? Because again, it is made for Shenhe. While some other poem character can make use of this poem, though it is not very common. But again, if you do have a Shenhe, this is a very good weapon to actually boost Shenhe's attack, therefore resulting more overall damage buffing for your cryo character whenever you have Shenhe in the team. That being said, the 4-star options on the banner isn't actually bad either, because we do have kind of like the Cyphos weapon series. I actually don't know what this weapon series is actually called, but for the sword, the Cyphos Moonlight has always been considered to be one of the better 4-star sword out there, even though it is limited. If you do have access to the sword, many of the sword character on your account will definitely be able to make use of this, especially character like Kazuya, right, has always been using the Cyphos Moonlight to very good amount. So seeing this sword appearing back here is rather good. Now, the Claymore as well as the Catalyst is in very similar situation. It does give you EM on its secondary stat, and of course for the passive, you're getting other bonus attack as well as sharing a bit of this buff to your other party members as well. So the limited weapon series on the weapon banner is rather good. Not to mention, we do have the Sack Bow, a very decent weapon series as always, and of course the Favonius Lance. Technically, it's going to be there for your Shenhe if you don't end up with a Calamity Queller. So overall, if we look into it, if you're deciding to put on the weapon banner, the value is very good, which is where we're going to be looking into some of the future character discussions, usually the more important part of the video, because obviously we already know that after Skirk or Shenhe on the phase 1 of 5.7, Mavuika is kinda bad, right? Not to mention Emily is right next to Mavuika. Now obviously Emily is not as important as Mavuika, but she's just an absolutely huge character, guys. We've already kind of discussed that Mavuika DPS power level is still going to be better than Skirk. Not to mention, Mavuika is an absolutely free-to-play character. You can just use her in most of the 4-star free-to-play team while holding a 4-star weapon, and she's still going to be able to dish out an amazing damage level for you. Therefore, it's going to be a consideration for your part. And I've already discussed in some of my video before that I do value Mavuika more towards Skirk, especially if you are lacking in DPS character on your account. You're feeling that you need another very good DPS character and you don't have Mavuika yet. She's definitely always going to be on the top list for you guys to actually consider, of not just being a character that deals great damage, but the amount of investment you need for Mavuika is actually not that much. Secondly, Mavuika is also going to be on her rerun. Skirk is on her first time release, therefore we don't really know when Mavuika is going to be back after Skirk. So guys, if you are considering between Skirk and Mavuika for your DPS level on your account, I'm still going to kind of urge you to look into Mavuika a little bit more than Skirk. But again, obviously it is a game. If you do like Skirk, go ahead and pull for her, because I know that many of you do not like Mavuika gameplay of, you know, being on a motorcycle and attack, which is obviously not always going to be as pleasing looking compared to Skirk animation overall in Genshin Impact. Obviously, other than that, we don't know any of the future character new that are going to be coming in 5.8 just yet, but we kind of know that Silali is technically going to be coming back sooner or later as well. Silali is also a character that's very important on most of the account, because Melt and Vaporize are two elemental reactions that's just so powerful in the game right now. So Silali value level is still going to be there. Obviously not going to be something that you guys can and need to consider just yet, but you do have a few weeks to actually plan out for your Silali pools, but it is going to be still a consideration down the line. So those are some of the discussion regarding the future character that may be potentially coming for the time being, and my thought on Skirk and Shenhe on the first phase right now. If you do have any question, leave it down in the comment section. I or some lovely other Genshin player will get to you there. I hope you found the video helpful. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to not miss out on my future Genshin videos. With that, I wish you a super day, and I'll catch you on my next video.